You grew up with an audience you could not see. So you learned to see yourself first. You know the moment. It is late. The room is dark. The only light is the blue glow on your face. You scroll once, then again. And when nothing changes, you still do it, because you can hear that tiny click when you refresh. That click is not a sound. It is a question. Am I still here? Did I miss something? Did I do something wrong? The world calls this attention-seeking, but it is not vanity. It is vigilance. It is not wanting to be seen. It is not trusting that you already are. Because when you grew up online, you didn't just post. You learned to manage your tone, your timing, your face, your silence. You learned what gets love, what gets ignored, what gets punished, so you built a self that could survive the feed. A clean self, a funny self, a calm self, a self that never asks for too much, a self that edits the mess into something shareable. And yet, beneath that neat mask, there is another you. A you that is not dramatic, just tired. A you that doesn't know where to put your real thoughts, because real thoughts do not fit in boxes. So you become your own watcher, your own judge, your own publicist. Not because you are fake, but because being too real once felt unsafe. Not because you lie, but because you learned that truth without timing becomes a target. And maybe this is the first hidden grief of growing up online. You were never just living. You were learning how to look like someone who is living. You didn't grow up watched, you grew up watching yourself. And yet, there is a deeper layer. Because this is not only about identity, it is also about the body. Online love comes in a strange shape, not warm, not steady, but bright, then gone. A reply, a heart, a silence that lasts 3 hours. That pattern matters. When rewards arrive at random likes, messages, sudden attention, your brain learns to keep checking because the next pull might pay out. And when the reward is better than expected, dopamine systems can fire a prediction error. That teaches you, fast, what to chase next. So the feed becomes a training room. You learn a lesson without words. Uncertainty is normal. Waiting is normal. Being ignored is normal. The world calls it addiction. But it is not only craving, it is calibration. Your system adapted to unstable closeness. This is how you end up doing connection like math. You count hours. You reread tone. You check if the dot is there. You stare at scene and try to guess what you did. And in quiet moments, your mind doesn't rest. It reviews. The brain has a default mode, an idle gear that leans toward self, focused thought, and rumination can grow there like a loop. So at 3 a.m., you don't just remember what happened. You rebuild it. You run 10 versions. You write a message in your head, then delete it, then write it again. Your body joins in. Your swallow comes a second too late. Your jaw holds a little pressure, like it is biting back a sentence. Your eyes flick to the corner of the screen, not to read, just to predict. This is not a flaw. This is your system trying to protect you. Not because you are weak, but because you learned closeness could change without warning. You learned love as a maybe, so your body stays on call. But beneath this, there is a paradox. Because the same training that made you anxious also made you sharp. You can read a room you are not even in. You can feel a mood shift through punctuation, a period, a delay, a K, and your mind goes quiet, not calm focused. The world calls you sensitive, but it is not fragility. It is pattern skill. The world calls you distracted, but it is not laziness. It is scanning. You learn to track tiny changes because tiny changes once mattered. A post that got no love, a joke that landed wrong, a photo that made someone pull away. So you developed a strange kind of social vision, not mind reading, more like weather sense. You notice pressure before the storm. You notice distance before the goodbye. And you also learned multiplicity, not one face, many. Not because you are fake, but because one face was never enough to hold all your worlds. There is the you who is effortless in comments, the you who is silent in group chats, the you who types a truth, stares at it, and chooses the safer version. That choosing is not cowardice. It is strategy. You don't only want to be liked, you want to be safe, you want to be understood, without being exposed. You want closeness that doesn't cost you your dignity, so you become good at staying intact. You keep receipts in your memory. You remember who laughed, who vanished, who returned when it was convenient. And maybe that is the hidden power here. You are not too much. You are finely tuned, not broken, not behind. Just trained in a world where attention was currency and silence had weight. Your sensitivity isn't weakness, it's safety translated into skill. And yet, Every skill has a cost, because when you become readable, you become reachable. And when you become reachable, you start to feel owned. You reply fast. You react just enough. You keep the vibe smooth. That is what we see. But inside, there is a quiet math problem running all day. How much of me is safe here? How long can I be real before I am punished for it? How many versions of me are they holding? And which one do they want today? The world calls you social, but it is not ease. It is endurance. The world calls you chill, but it is not calm. It is control. It is control. Because online access can look like intimacy. You can be known by many names, but still feel unnamed. In the place that matters, here is the small scene you never talk about. You get in the car after being on for hours. For hours. The car door closes and the silence finally hits. Your phone lights up with a message you wanted, and you feel nothing at first. Not relief, not joy. Just a blank pause, like your mind is waiting for instructions. So you hold the screen. You can answer, you can perform, you can be perfect. But some part of you goes still. This is the other side of growing up online. You get so good at staying connected that your body forgets how to feel safe while connected. In the language of the nervous system, there are states that support connection and protect you by pulling you away from sensation when it feels like too much. When threat feels inescapable, another protective pathway can show up as immobilization, numbness or dissociation less, drama more shutdown. So you disappear in plain sight. You laugh, but it is timed. You share, but it is curated. You love, but you ration it. Not because you don't want intimacy, but because intimacy, to your older wiring, can feel like exposure, and exposure once meant consequences. So you become your own locked room. You let others knock. You even answer the door, but you do not always let them in. You became easy to reach, not easy to hold. And now, maybe the goal is not to delete the online self. Maybe the goal is to meet the private self you never got to practice, because you were trained to prove you exist, to show receipts, to translate worth into numbers. But a real self does not come with metrics. A real self is not a post. A real self is what remains when no one reacts. So perhaps healing is not a dramatic exit. Perhaps it is a small return, not to the past, to the part of you that never had a witness and still survived. A gentle experiment can live here. Maybe next time you feel the pull to check, you pause one beat longer, not to win, not to resist, just to notice the story your mind tries to sell you. In that beat, if I don't look, I'll lose it. If I don't answer, I'll be forgotten. If I'm not available, I'm not lovable. And what if that is the old program talking? Not wrong, just outdated. Because you are allowed to be real without being public. You are allowed to be loved without being optimized. You are allowed to belong without performing your belonging. You are not content. You are consciousness, finally unmeasured.